We went through a lot of innovation throughout the advancement of humankind. For thousands of years, the Earth is continuously being shaped into a more convenient world for us. As a result, we now live in a world that continuously aims to improve our lifestyle, which is one of the reasons why each generation are completely different from one another. Although we cannot completely deny the conveniences we experience now due to these innovations, according to Natalie Novella, the human knack for innovation simultaneously provides ephemeral convenience and comfort while hastening Earth's environment towards terrifying long-term decline. With that said, is it safe to assume that we humans are invasive species? What does being invasive mean, and how do we exactly invade our environment? To answer those questions, let's focus on how the human activities affect the oxygen cycle.
Let us tackle invasive species and how they get to other environments and spread. What are invasive species? Invasive species are types of organisms that are not native to a specific place. Invasive species can wreak havoc on the new area's economy and environment. To be invasive, a species must be able to quickly adapt to its new environment. It needs to reproduce as soon as possible, and it must cause damage to property, the economy, or the region's native plants and animals. But how do they get to those environments? The majority of invasive species are brought by humans. Modern transportation systems deliver products, services, and people to every corner of the globe. Many have been introduced to lakes by ballast water from ships. Exotic pets and plants that get loose in the wild adapt to their new surroundings. Insects imported from other countries in wood packaging and wooden products have caused damage on native trees and woodlands. How do they spread? The capacity of many invasives to colonize new places quickly is what makes them so successful. For plants, this can imply having seeds that are easily dispersed or caught on a viral or fern, such as autumn olive seeds, or plant parts that can reproduce full plants from cut or broken sections, like the Eurasian water milfoil.
Oxygen is an essential constituent of air around us. Approximately 21% of the atmosphere is comprised of oxygen. Plants release most of the oxygen found in our atmosphere as a byproduct of photosynthesis. On the contrary, many life forms remove oxygen from the atmosphere as they breathe. This oxygen is used by these life forms to carry out the functions of life. What is the oxygen cycle? The oxygen cycle is a biogeochemical cycle that describes the movement of oxygen within its three main reservoirs: the atmosphere, biosphere, and lithosphere. Among these three, the lithosphere is considered the largest reservoir of oxygen, as it stores approximately 99.5% of oxygen in the form of silicate and oxide minerals. However, only a small portion of it has been released as free oxygen to the biosphere and atmosphere, about 0.01% to the biosphere and 0.36% to the atmosphere. Moving on, let's talk about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the primary source of atmospheric oxygen. During this process, green plants and some other organisms use sunlight to synthesize foods from carbon dioxide and water. Lastly, respiration and decomposition. Respiration and decomposition are simply the processes that remove oxygen from the atmosphere. During these processes, all living things consume oxygen and release carbon dioxide.
For the next topic, we are going to talk about anthropogenic effects and effects of invasive species in the oxygen cycle. And before I start, I will talk about what is anthropogenic. Anthropogenic is an environmental change or a hazard caused by human activities, and it can be either directly or indirectly. The examples of this is incineration of fossil fuels, industrial waste release, AS-based fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, overconsumption, and deforestation. So, what are the effects of anthropogenic? It increases soil and water pollution all over the world. It can be either organic or non-organic pollutants. It changes the biophysical environments, ecosystem biodiversity, and natural resources that are caused by intentional or non-malicious human activities. It also includes global warming, the mass extinction of animals, and environmental degradation. Next is the effects of invasive species in the oxygen cycle. So it reduces biodiversity, and biodiversity is essential for the functioning of ecosystems. Invasive species alter and degrade the environment and negatively affect native plant and animal species. It causes extinction of some species of animals and plants. It alters the habitat and competes with other organisms for limited resources, resulting in fundamental disruptions of coastal and Great Lake ecosystems. It stores carbon dioxide, which is a good news. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas in soils and plant tissues. But the bad news is it emits a more robust climate warming gas such as nitrous oxide.
Now we move on epigenetics. It is the study of one's behavior and environment that causes change in the way their genes work. It does not directly change the DNA sequence of a person, but changes the behavior of their body on how it reads a DNA sequence. So how does your epigenetics change? Your epigenetics change as you age, both as part of normal development and aging, and in response to your behaviors and environment. It changes throughout your life. Your epigenetics at birth is not the same as your epigenetics during childhood or adulthood. But how does epigenetics affect our health? Air pollution is one of the most alarming problems throughout the world. Exposure to harmful air, such as particulate matter, can increase the risk of having diseases, such as cancer. These particles can change your epigenetics to weaken your immune system.
With all that said, is it even a matter of debate that we, humans, are invasive species? For thousands of years, we were so cut off for development that we disregard the condition of the habitat we are living on. We felt the responsibility to advance human civilization, to continuously innovate for the convenience of humanity, that throughout the process, we forgot to care for the land we live in, the water we drink, and more importantly, the air we breathe. Now, the air we breathe are starting to be polluted that can bring despair to humankind. We know that oxygen cycle is the one responsible maintaining the oxygen level on Earth, that works independently alongside with carbon cycle, but are interconnected to one another. With the continuous production of greenhouse gases due to human activities that causes global warming, the oxygen level on Earth is in danger of depletion. However, this should not dishearten anyone yet. We should not forget that we are good at finding solutions. We will not reach this point of technological advancement if it weren't for that reason. Let's keep in mind that it is not yet too late for us to consider the environmental benefits of our future innovations.